started. What's up, everyone? Excuse me, clearing my throat. Today is Friday. A couple housekeeping things to start. If you haven't seen my interview with Steve Jordan that I put out yesterday, Steve Jordan is one of the most famous drummers of all time. He played on SNL. He played with David Letterman. He's a famous producer. He produced John Mayer, like many John Mayer records. Been playing with John Mayer for years, but played with Keith Richards, played with everybody, produced so many huge records. Watch my video interview with him. I put it out yesterday. It's an hour-long interview, but it is absolutely fascinating. If you're a drummer, it's really fascinating. But I think for any musician, you should watch this. The discount code for today is RB700. I never do a 60% off my Beato Book YouTube Instagram transcription bundle. Today's the day. It's a Halloween sale. 60% off RB700. If you're going to get my book and the Instagram YouTube transcription bundle, today's the day to do it. And the ear training course is 40% off today. It's actually today and tomorrow the sale will be. So I have a new setup here with a different keyboard on the screen. This is actually cool. This is an app called Chordy. You'll see the keyboard light up like that. We're going to do beginning music theory here. We're actually going to use my Beato book. We're going to talk about how intervals are named. We're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about keys. Now, I've done these videos before, but I have 80,000, 90,000 new subscribers every month. This is stuff that to keep going back over, I believe. I'm going to bring up actually this here where it says Theory and Harmony. This is chapter 1 of my Beato book here. And this has to do with naming intervals, how you name intervals, okay? I'm going to go down like this. It says here, a thorough understanding of intervals is very important. Here, let me move myself over a little bit. There we go. So the idea of naming intervals, let's just get right into it. So intervals are really a combination of two things: the number of letter names spanned and the number of half steps spanned. Right here, where it says interval names and symbols, you'll see the half steps there, okay? 0 half steps is a unison. Unison would be, right, the same note. 1 half step is a minor second, 2 half steps is a major second, so on and so forth. Well, that doesn't always work, all right? There are theoretical intervals like augmented intervals, diminished intervals. We'll talk about that in a second. But let me talk about this idea of the number of letter names spanned first, okay? If we take a C major scale, let me just take the first 2 notes of it, C to D. Well, C and D are 2 letter names spanned. So that means that the interval C to D is some type of second. We don't know if it's major or minor second yet. But if you look on this chart here, and you'll see that 2 half steps spanned is a major second. Okay? So from C to D, that interval is a major second. C to D flat is a minor second. There's still 2 letter names spanned, C and D, or C and D flat, right? Don't worry if it's flat or sharp. As long as you just look at the letter names, you don't look at sharps and flats. So two letter names spanned, 1 half step. That is a minor second, okay? There's a chart down here that says perfect and imperfect intervals, right? It's just right above the keyboard here. The perfect intervals are the unison, the perfect 4th, perfect 5th, and perfect octave, right? Or perfect 8th. When you look at the way the intervals are labeled, a lowercase m means minor, an uppercase m means major. A D or lowercase d is diminished, and an uppercase A is augmented. These are just the commonly used labels for intervals, okay? But the lowercase m for minor, we also use with minor chords, for example. If you play D minor, you put I put capital D and then a small m, Okay. Now, let's talk about naming intervals here. We're going to start with just intervals in the major scale. Okay. So let's say I take C to F. Okay. There are how many letter names span? Well, let's think. C, D, E, F. There are 4 letter names spanned. And then you go through and you say, well, how many half steps are spanned? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you go to your chart and you say, okay, let's see here. 5 half steps spanned. Well, it's a perfect fourth, okay? The perfect intervals, the 4th and the 5th, okay, those are called perfect. If you lower a perfect, well, I don't even get into this. It's going to get confusing. Let's just stay with these for now. Let's say C to A. If you look, and if you count the letter name spanned, C, D, you always count the tonic, C, or the lower note, C, D, E, F, G, A. There's 6 letter name spanned, so it's some type of a 6th. You come over to here, and you look, and you say, oh, let's see, there are 9 half steps spanned, so it is a major 6th interval. The thing about the major scale has all major intervals in it, right? C to D is a major 2nd, C to E is a major 3rd, C to F is a perfect 4th, C to G is a perfect 5th. Remember, the 4ths and 5ths are perfect in a major scale. C to A is a major 6th, C to B is a major 7th, and then C to C is a perfect 8th or perfect octave, okay? Perfect 8th interval. If you go beyond the octave, this would be a 9th, okay? A major 9th, okay? You'd have a minor 9th, major 9th, minor 10th, major 10th. We're not going to talk about that right now, but that's how these intervals are labeled, okay? So, number of letter names spanned, and then how many half steps are spanned in it. And you just, eventually you become really fast at this. Descending intervals work the same way, okay? It doesn't matter whether they're ascending or descending. If I go E to C, you go, okay, E, D, C. 3 letter names spanned. It's the same thing. You look at how many half steps. That is a major 3rd, whether you're going from C to E or E to C, okay? So that actually makes it easy with intervals. Now, there's a second component of intervals that when you look at this chart here, talking about augmented and diminished intervals, okay? Perfect intervals, if they are raised, they become augmented, and if they're lowered, if they're raised by a half step, they're called augmented. If they're lowered by a half step, they're diminished. This can get confusing. C to F sharp, well, this is an augmented 4th if it's F sharp. So you get C, D, E, F. So 4 letter names span, so it's some type of 4th. But if you count the half steps and you look at your chart, you're like, let's see, that's 6 half steps spanned. Well, that's actually an augmented 4th. If I called that top note a G flat, then you'd say C, D, E, F, G. Well, it's some type of 5th. Well, that would actually be a diminished 5th. So an augmented 4th, C to F sharp, and C to G flat, the same note. It's just how it's labeled. C to G flat would be a diminished 5th. So this is how these things work. Don't get confused by these things, but just know that augmented means you're raising something and diminished means you're lowering something. Pretty much common sense there. Okay, now if I go down here, go on to this next page, it says perfect intervals, octave, unison, 4th, 5th, can become augmented when enlarged by half step, become diminished when reduced by half step. Just what I talked about, right? Imperfect intervals, which would be seconds, 7ths, 3rds, and 6ths, they become major when enlarged by half step, major intervals become augmented when enlarged by half step, mean raised by half step, and they become minor when lowered by half step. So CDE is a major 3rd. If I lower that by half step, it becomes a minor 3rd. Now this gets into a little bit level of complexity that's not important right now. What's important is just basic understanding of intervals theoretically like this. You hear people talk about, oh, it's a third, or a major chord here is a major third, and then from the middle note to the top note is a minor third. So C to E is a major third, E to G is a minor third, but C to G is a perfect fifth. So you have two different sets of intervals here. You have major third, minor third, three sets of intervals, and a perfect fifth that make up this chord. Okay, that's a C major chord. C minor chord would be minor third, major third. It's just the opposite. Or on the outside, it would be a perfect fifth. Same thing, C to G. Okay, being able to hear intervals is extremely important for ear training. Now, this is literally the first thing I teach in my book because it's the building blocks of music theory. Think of intervals as syllables, okay? Or, the building blocks of words, okay? A syllable would be a building block, or phonemes, really, actually what makes up syllables, right? These are the building blocks of chords, of everything, of melodies. But an interval is simply the distance from one note to the next, okay? Vertical distance, if they're played at the same time, those are called harmonic intervals. If I play one after another, that's called a melodic interval because it's like a melody, okay? So harmonic are played together like a harmony, and melodic intervals are played one after another, okay? Discount code RB700, 60% off my Beato Book YouTube transcription PDF bundle, which is like 675 pages, and 40% off the ear training course. I've never had a sale ever on here this low. I'm doing it this week. Halloween sale. Halloween is one of my favorite holidays. I like scary movies. Actually, I was just talking with my girls about this a little while ago. They're asking me, what's the scariest movie you ever saw, Dad? And I named some obscure 1960s horror film. Anyway, Billy's looking at me like, what? Okay, so this goes in right here where it says naming intervals. Go back to the screen here. It says naming intervals, and it shows you. It's actually easier to visualize this, I think. If you just look at the bracket there, like C to F is 4 letter names spanned. So it's some type of fourth. That's what we call the generic classification. And then then you look at the number of half steps spanned, and you go up to your chart that's up here, and you look, okay, perfect fourth is 5 half steps spanned, okay? If you count that, that's what it would be. Make sense? And F to A flat, you look at the generic 3 letter names spanned, and then you count the half steps. 3 half steps, so F to F sharp or F to G flat, that's 1, 2, 3 half steps. That's a minor third. Just look it up in your chart. There is memorization that goes along with this. In addition to that, your ear, if you start working with these intervals, if you get my ear training course, for example, the first thing you get tested on are intervals, melodic and harmonic intervals, and it will play random intervals for you. You start out with seconds, major and minor seconds, and you work from there. And it will test you on these things. And you just get used to hearing the difference between a major sixth, a minor third, a perfect fourth, minor sixth, major seventh. And if you can hear these things, you can figure out any song, any melody, any chord progression, anything. You can just figure out. When I listen to stuff, I can just figure it out by ear. I don't have perfect pitch. I listen to it and I say, oh yeah, it's 1 chord to 6 chord, 2 chord, 5 chord. Yeah, I got it. And then, if somebody tells me, oh, that's the note C is a starting note. Oh, well then it's C, A minor, D minor, G. 1, 6, 2, 5. Okay, so I just went from the 1 chord to the 6 chord to the 2 chord to the 5 chord. So this is why intervals are so important, because they teach you how to build chords, how to build scales, and how to figure out songs by ear, okay? It doesn't matter what the genre of music is. Rock, pop, hip-hop, jazz, soul, R&B, classical, they all use intervals, okay? Okay, The next thing I want to talk about after intervals is key centers. Now, we've talked about this a bunch of times before, but this is going to be better because you're going to be able to visualize this. I'm going to explain this to you. So we're going to go to the circle of fifths right here. You can see it on the screen. Now, the circle of fifths. So when you see this, Billy, can you see my pointer on here?
I cannot.
You cannot. Okay, so you can't see the pointer. Okay, so if you look at the C, it says C major, and it just has a natural sign there. That means there's no sharps or flats in the key of C. The key of G has 1 sharp. The key of D has 2 sharps. Just look around the wheel. I'm going clockwise. Key of A has 3 sharps. Key of E has 4 sharps. Key of B has 5 sharps. G flat, F sharp has 6 flats or 6 sharps. Then D flat. You see C sharp major there. Just look at D flat. 5 flats, then A flats, 4 flats, and so on and so forth, right? So what does this mean? You have your order of sharps, order of flats right under here. Now, there are little mnemonic devices to learn these, okay? The order of flats, this is Billy's. He told me this one. He thinks this is the easiest one to remember. The order of flats. So flats always go in the same order. So if you look at the key of B flat, it has 2 flats. Well, if you just take the first 2 flats in the order of flats, you have B flat and E flat, okay? Well, if you memorize this mnemonic device, Bob Evans ate donuts, got crazy fat, okay? Or big elephants always drive go-karts fast. Billy said that's not as easy to remember. But Bob Evans, it could be Bill Evans, ate donuts, got crazy, crazy fat. So, Bill Evans, so B-E, right? 8, A. You just go through it. Donuts. You just memorize that. That's the order of flats. Now, once you have this order of flats and order of sharps memorized, the order of sharps one is fat cats go down alley eating bacon. Okay, that's one of the ones that I looked up. I never use these things to memorize this stuff. I just memorized it, but a lot of people think that this is helpful, and it is helpful. Billy, is it helpful to you or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we take the order of sharps. If I take a key like D major, so you see it right there, it says 2 sharps on it. Well, if you take the notes beginning on a D here, so this is the note D on a keyboard, okay? The 2 sharps are F sharp and C sharp because those are the 2 in the order of sharps. Those are the first 2 that occur. So when I get to those notes, to the note F and the note C in the scale, I make those F sharp and C sharp. So D, E, F sharp, right? G, A, B, C sharp, D. So there's my F sharp and C sharp. Those are the notes that are sharped in the key of D major. Let's say I go to the key of B flat major. Well, B flat obviously starts on the note B flat, but if you look at the order of flats, the first 2 are B flat and E flat, right? That's Bob Evans, B flat, E flat. Okay, so if I start on this note here, this is the note B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A. So the only notes that are flatted are these 2. All the rest of them are white notes. Make sense? This is how the order of sharps and flats work with the circle of fifths. This is how you figure out key centers. So what you have to do is memorize Bob Evans. What is this one, Billy? I just remember with B-E-A-D-G. Okay. Bob Evans ate donuts, got crazy fat. For the order of flats, and the order of sharps is fat cats go down alley eating bacon. You can make up your own. Every time I've made a video talking about the order of sharps and flats, I always see in the comments section a lot of different ones on there, right? So make up your own, something that's easy to remember like that, and then just get used to saying these, right? B-E-A-D, and so on and so forth. The same thing goes for memorizing the circle of fifths. When you get to the circle of fifths, I mean, you literally just have to know, you just have to memorize C, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, F. You just memorize it, okay? Then once you do that, and the way I did it, the way that I got fast at it is I drew a circle, I drew a clock, right? So I draw a circle, I draw boom, 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 okay? And then I fill in the 12 spots on it with 12 little lines, just like it is on here. And I start with C on the top, and I put G flat or F sharp on the bottom, and then I just fill it in, C, G, D, A, and so on and so forth. Go get to work on it clockwise, work on it counterclockwise. Chord progressions work in this way. Very, very common, okay? These two things, though, the order of sharps and order of flats, are extremely important to memorize. So the circle of fifths and intervals will get you pretty far, because if you memorize these and then you know about what chords are major and minor in a key, major key or minor key, then you will be able to figure out songs using music theory, okay? If you can figure out, okay, that sounds like it's in the key. I found the tonic of it, and the tonic is G, so maybe it's in the key of G. Well, what are the chords? G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp, diminished. You just plug in this chord formula, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, okay? Plug that in. Once you know the scale, and you go, major, G major, A minor, B minor, C major, that's the 4 chord, D major is the 5 chord, E minor is the 6 chord, F sharp diminished is the 7th chord. Okay, so 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, 6 chord, 7 chord, back to the 1 chord. You notice how this F sharp is in there, because F sharp is the only note that's sharped in the key of G. Okay, so this is why the circle of fifths is so important, because it tells you what notes are in each key. Once you know the notes, you memorize the chord patterns, you can build the scales and the chord progressions, what we call the diatonic chords, or the chords from that key. They always go in a particular pattern: major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished. That's it. That's how major keys work. Okay. All right. So going back here, let's just talk a little bit about ear training. Okay, because ear training is extremely important. In my Beato ear training, once again, discount code for the Beato book and ear training is RB700. I'm doing 60% off the Beato book Instagram, YouTube transcription bundle. Follow me on Instagram if you don't. I post every day there. Different stuff from here. I do a lot of 45-second lessons on there. Okay, I call them quick lessons. A lot of those are transcribed in here. And the YouTube transcription bundle, I have, that whole thing is, 175 pages, something like that, Billy? It's a lot. That, and my Beato book is 500 pages. So it's a huge, huge PDF. So 675 pages for 60% off for today and tomorrow. Okay. And my ear training, RB700, same discount code, is 40% off. I've never done that discount. I'm only doing it for today and tomorrow. So with the ear training, though, the whole key to this, once you learn intervals, right? If you hear that, you go, okay, well, that's a major 6th interval. Or if I have the chords built on those, okay, well, that's the 1 chord to the 6th chord. All right, so I'm like, okay, C to A minor. I just know that. 1 chord, 6 chord. Then 4 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord. Okay, these are how chord progressions work. Pretty easy, actually. But you have to train your ear to hear them, right? You train your ear to hear triads. Is it major? Is it minor? Is it diminished, augmented? And by practicing this stuff, you can get really fast at it. All right. So it's a combination of recognizing the interval relationship of the bass notes and then what the chord quality is, major or minor, suspended, whatever it is. You eventually get tested on these things as you progress through the ear training course. There's 20 different sections of it, but there are hundreds of modules. It's got video content. It's got a PDF that goes along with the ear training course as well. Okay. Let me go back real fast here to the to this. So this is literally right out of my book here, the theory and harmony part. So it starts with this. Okay. It starts with how to name intervals. Simply read this stuff and watch this video. Okay. This is YouTube gold here. These are the things that I was fortunate enough to learn when I was in high school, before I even went to college. I learned what intervals were because I had a great guitar teacher that taught me these things, taught me the names of them, and taught me to recognize them by ear. And then when I got into ear training in college, it just made it so easy. And I think, too, because I was a rock guitar player in high school. I mean, it was in the 70s. That's what we played, right? But I started learning jazz and other different punk rock. I started learning all different styles of music. Plus, I was a classical bass player. Actually, my undergrad is in classical bass. And when I got into ear training class and they started doing intervals, it was difficult for a lot of people at first because most of the people that were in the class were hearing this for the first time. But because I got introduced to this with my guitar teacher before college, it made it so easy. And it's just simply memorization. Okay. Shane, thank you so much. Pedozzi, Jeff Lynne interview. Yeah. It's hard to find people like guys like Jeff Lynne to do intervals. As my channel's gotten bigger, it becomes easier to get access to people like that. That's kind of the upper echelon of people that older generation, people that are a generation older than me, are they're harder to get. I mean, you talk about Jeff Lynne, you're talking about then the ELO and the Beatles. This is like way beyond my YouTube channel. One day I'll get Jeff Lynne eventually. All right, so that's all for today. This is really important. Keep going back over this lesson here. Check out my book. Check out the ear training course. Like I said, I haven't done this discount ever, the 60% off. If you've been kind of waiting and saying, I don't know if I'm going to wait till buy it, this is the time to buy it. It supports my channel too. Renzo, thank you so much. You're awesome. It supports my channel. I don't do any ads or anything like that on here with, I do, ads before the thing, but I'm not sponsored by anybody or anything like that. And there's the reason I do that I don't do that is because I don't want to be up here hawking gear. I don't even do gear demos or anything. You guys are the best. That's it. Leave comments if you have questions in the comment section. I'll try to get to the ones I can. All right. We'll see you guys.